But tonight, questions remain about when the president and his team knew he had the virus, as well as questions about the severity of his condition. So let's take a look at some of the latest information we have so far. White House physician Dr. Sean Conley says the president has been fever-free for more than 24 hours, although he would not say the exact temperature the president had at the time. Dr. Conley also says the president is not currently receiving supplemental oxygen and that his organ functions are normal.
At this time, the team and I are extremely happy with the progress the president has made. Thursday, he had a mild cough and some nasal congestion and fatigue, all of which are now resolving and improving.
Dr. Conley caused some confusion when he laid out a timeline for President Trump's diagnosis. He told reporters that the president was 72 hours into his diagnosis, meaning the president would have withheld that information from the public more than 24 hours and would have attended a fundraiser and campaign rally knowing he was ill. Dr. Conley later sent out a statement saying his timeline he gave was incorrect and that the president was on a 3-day diagnosis, not a full 72 hours. And according to the Associated Press, the president was also given supplemental oxygen at the White House before being diagnosed or taken to the hospital. The AP also reports White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said the president went through a very concerning period on Friday, and the next 48 hours will be critical for his care.